All right, let's dive in, shall we? Today, it's Grigori Rasputin. Mystic, madman, you name it.
He's definitely one for the history books.
I mean, this guy's life, honestly, it reads more like a movie script than actual history.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Even now, a century later, Rasputin is still an enigma. Separating fact from fiction, that's the real challenge.
Well, we've got our work cut out for us then. We've got biographies, historical accounts, even some first-hand stuff. And let me tell you, this is going to be a wild ride. I mean, we've all heard the stories, right? The mad monk, hypnotic eyes, supernatural powers, the whole 9 yards. But who was he really? Where did he even come from?
Well, picture this. Late 19th century Siberia, endless forests, brutal winters, a place where religion was life. That was Rasputin's world, born into a peasant family, far, far away from the glitz and glamour of the Russian court.
So how does a Siberian peasant end up in the heart of St. Petersburg? That's a heck of a journey.
It really is. It's a story of ambition, charisma, and maybe a little bit of luck. But it all starts with his early life. One of 9 children, and even as a kid there were whispers, visions, trances, even a strange power over animals.
So those stories about his mystical powers, maybe there's some truth to them, like rooted in his childhood.
It's possible, isn't it? Those early experiences, they probably shaped his whole image. The holy man, the healer, the one with the direct line to God.
But how much of that was real faith, and how much was just him playing the part? That's what I'm curious about.
The million-dollar question. But before we get to his rise, we need to understand his path. Remember, no formal education. He was a farmer for a good chunk of his life. And then at 18, bam, a life-altering religious experience hits him.
This is where the clowning come in, right?
Yeah.
They weren't exactly your average church group.
To put it mildly, ecstatic rituals, chanting, dancing, self-flagellation, all to reach this state of religious ecstasy. They believed in sinning to salvation. The idea was to purge sin through extreme acts.
Okay, that's intense. I can see how that would shape his worldview, his spirituality. But I bet the Russian aristocracy wasn't too thrilled about this Siberian peasant with his Khlisty past waltzing into their world.
Oh, they weren't pleased at all. But Rasputin didn't just land at the court overnight. He spent years wandering Russia, pilgrimages, honing his reputation as a healer and spiritual advisor.
So he's building this image, this holy man persona, even before St. Petersburg.
Exactly. And that carefully crafted image is what ultimately gets him a ticket to the top.
And this is where Empress Alexandra comes in, right? Desperate to find a cure for her son's hemophilia.
Right. Imagine the pressure. Empress of Russia, her son the heir, with this incurable disease. She was willing to try anything. And then enter Rasputin, the Siberian peasant with a reputation for healing and a supposed connection to God.
It's like something out of a fairy tale. But there's got to be more to it than that.
Oh, there's a lot more. Palace intrigue, politics, clashing personalities. It's a story for the ages. But to get into all that, we need to dive into Rasputin's relationship with the Romanovs. And that's a story for our next segment. So we left off with Rasputin arriving in St. Petersburg. Quite a change from the Siberian wilderness, right?
Talk about a culture shock. I mean, it's 1905, the Romanov dynasty, all that grandeur, but underneath, things are pretty shaky, right?
Absolutely. Social unrest, economic inequality, political tension, the whole works.
So Rasputin walks into this, a desperate mother looking for a miracle cure. And this whole powder keg of a political situation.
Yeah, the timing is interesting, isn't it? Tsar Nicholas II, fresh off a defeat in the Russo-Japanese War. His authorities weakened.
So Rasputin shows up right at the moment the imperial family is at their most vulnerable, like a potential savior.
Exactly. And his reputation, those whispers of his healing powers, they reach Empress Alexandra. Now, her son, Alexei, the heir to the throne, has hemophilia, incurable at the time.
I can't even imagine that kind of pressure. Not just a mother, but the empress. The future of the dynasty rests on her son.
And Rasputin, he sees the opportunity. He steps into this role, spiritual healer, comforter, becomes a regular at the palace, praying for young Alexei. But here's where things get murky.
Right, because did he actually have healing powers? Or was this all a big act?
That's the big question. There are stories that suggest Rasputin's presence calmed Alexei down, eased his suffering. Maybe it was charisma, the power of suggestion. Some say he might have used herbs, but nothing concrete to support supernatural claims.
So the mystery remains. But whether it was real or not, the outcome matters.
Right.
That's what solidifies his position.
You got it. Because Alexei's conditions seemed to improve, even a little, that was enough for the Empress. She was convinced, believed he had this divine connection, her son's protector, sent by God.
Belief is a powerful thing, especially when it's mixed with that level of desperation and hope.
Absolutely. And that belief, that's what gave Rasputin his real power at court. The Empress trusted him more than almost anyone, even her own husband.
Oof, that couldn't have gone over well. The Tsar, the rest of the court, they must have been fuming. A Siberian peasant whispering in the Empress's ear, influencing matters of state.
Oh, there was resentment for sure. Rumors, scandals, the works. They saw him as a fake, a manipulator, taking advantage of the Empress, and the way he acted, ignoring court etiquette, just fueled the fire.
So he's climbed to the top, but he's surrounded by enemies. The court's like a snake pit. Every move he makes, they're watching, waiting to pounce.
That's a good way to put it. And as his influence grows, so does the opposition. Whispers turn to accusations, debauchery, heresy, treason, you name it, and it all builds up to this violent confrontation that changes everything. So yeah, Rasputin, this Iberian peasant who'd climbed the ranks to royal advisor, courting controversy every step of the way. But how does it all end?
Yeah, how does a guy like that fall from grace?
Well, his downfall, it was kind of baked into his rise. He had the Empress's ear, sure, but that alienated everyone else. The court, the aristocracy, even the Tsar's own family.
I could see that. They saw him as a threat, right? This outsider messing with their power structure. They weren't going to just let him take over.
Exactly. And then World War I hits. Russia's struggling. And the whispers about Rasputin, they get louder. He's accused of sabotaging the war effort, even treason, colluding with Germany. The truth? Who knows? But perception, that's what mattered.
So they decide to take him out. This is where we get to the assassination, right? The infamous one.
The assassination, yeah, it's a story, all right. Full of mystery, intrigue, told and retold with a little extra added each time. But let's see if we can cut through the myths and get to what really went down that night, December 1916.
Okay, lay it on me. Who are the players? Why'd they do it? And how'd they pull it off?
All right, so we've got this group of conspirators, led by Prince Felix Yusupov, related to the Tsar, no less. They lure Rasputin to the Moika Palace, Yusupov's own palace, by the way.
Bold move. Poisoning him in his own home. Did they underestimate Rasputin, or what?
Maybe. Or maybe they were just that desperate to shut him up for good. So they give him food and wine, laced with enough cyanide to kill a horse.
Wow. So what happens? Does he keel over right there?
Here's the thing, he doesn't. According to the stories, Rasputin just keeps eating, drinking, like the poison's doing nothing.
Wait, seriously, the poison didn't work. This is where that immortal monk legend comes from, right?
You got it. The conspirators, they freak out. Rasputin's supposed to be dead, so they get desperate, shoot him multiple times.
Oh, wow. So that's it then. End of story.
Not quite. They beat him, thinking, okay, now he's got to be dead. Wrap him up, dump him in the Neva River, out of sight, out of mind.
Man, what a story. Poison, bullets, a freezing river. Straight out of a nightmare. So that's how it ends.
Well, a few days later, they find Rasputin's body, and the autopsy. Get this, the cause of death. Not the poison, not the bullets. Drowning.
He was still alive. After all that, they threw him in the river, and he was still breathing.
That's wild. Adds to the legend, doesn't it? But it also shows just how brutal things were, the length people would go to get rid of someone they saw as a problem.
So what about the Romanovs? What happened to them after Rasputin was gone?
The Empress, well, she was heartbroken, obviously, but Rasputin's death didn't fix anything. Less than a year later, the whole Romanov dynasty, overthrown. Centuries of rule, gone.
So it was all for nothing in the end. Rasputin's death, just a small part of a much bigger story. What a tragic and kind of fitting end for a guy who lived his life on the edge like that.
A story that still has us hooked, doesn't it? Power, ambition, influence gone wrong. It's all there. And as we try to piece it all together, the accounts, the rumors, the legends, one question remains. Who was Rasputin, really? A true mystic? A master manipulator? Or just a guy caught in the wrong place at the wrong time?
A question for the ages, I guess. But that's the beauty of history, right? These stories, they make you think about human nature, the power struggles, the mysteries we may never solve. So to everyone listening, keep digging, keep asking questions, keep diving deep. And join us next time as we uncover another fascinating story from the past.